Have you ever heard of a time so chaotic that imposters pretending to be dead princes could seize the throne? A time when a single political blunder plunged a massive empire into 15 years of civil war, foreign invasion, and a famine so devastating it killed a third of the population. This isn't the plot of a grim fantasy novel. This is the true story of Russia's time of troubles. It all began in 1598. The mighty Tsar Ivan the Terrible was long dead, and his last son, the pious but politically weak Fyodor, died without an heir. This was a disaster. For the first time in over 700 years, the Rurikid dynasty, which had ruled since the very dawn of Russia, was extinguished. The throne was empty. Who would rule? The logical choice seemed to be Boris Godunov, Fyodor's brilliant brother-in-law and the de facto ruler for years. He was smart, capable, and had the support of the church. The National Assembly, the Zemsky Sober, officially elected him as the new Tsar. For a moment, it seemed like a smooth transition. But under the surface, trouble was brewing. The old noble families, the boyars, were furious. They saw Godunov as an upstart, not of royal blood. They whispered that he had schemed his way to the top, even accusing him of arranging the mysterious death of Ivan the Terrible's youngest son, Dmitry, years earlier in the town of Uglich. This accusation, a toxic seed of doubt, would soon sprout into a monstrous problem. Then, nature itself seemed to turn against Russia. In 1601, a massive volcanic eruption in Peru sent a cloud of ash around the globe, triggering a volcanic winter. Russia was hit hardest. For 2 straight years, summer never came. Crops failed, and a horrific famine gripped the land. People were reportedly driven to cannibalism. Starving peasants fled the countryside, forming huge bands of desperate, armed men. The country was a powder keg, and Boris Godunov, despite his best efforts to distribute grain, was blamed for it all. The people started to believe the whispers. This was God's punishment for an illegitimate Tsar. It was the perfect moment for an opportunist. And in the Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth, a mysterious young man appeared, claiming to be none other than Tsarevich Dmitry, the boy who supposedly died in Uglich. He claimed he had miraculously escaped the assassination attempt and was now coming to claim his rightful throne. Was he the real Dmitry? Almost certainly not. But in a country ravaged by famine and desperate for a true Tsar, the story was intoxicating. He was charismatic, bold, and he had powerful backers in Poland who saw a chance to meddle in Russian affairs. This false Dmitry gathered an army of Polish adventurers and Russian exiles and marched on Moscow. Boris Godunov's government, weakened by the famine and internal dissent, struggled to fight back. Then, at the height of the crisis in 1605, Boris suddenly died. His 16-year-old son, Fyodor II, took the throne, but his reign was doomed. The Russian army, tired of the Godunovs, defected. The gates of Moscow were thrown open, and the boyars, eager to get rid of the Godunovs, welcomed the impostor. The young Tsar Fyodor and his mother were brutally murdered. False Dmitry I entered the Kremlin and was crowned Tsar of all Russia. An impostor was on the throne. For a while, the gamble paid off. He was energetic and even popular with the common people. But he made a fatal mistake. He acted less like a Russian Tsar and more like a Polish nobleman. He flaunted Russian customs, filled his court with Polish advisors, and married a Polish Catholic noblewoman in a lavish ceremony that offended the devoutly Orthodox Muscovites. The boyars who had helped him rise, led by the cunning Vasily Shuisky, now saw their chance to seize power for themselves. Just 10 months into his reign, a conspiracy exploded. Shuisky's men stormed the Kremlin, hunted down false Dmitry, and killed him. His body was displayed, then cremated, and his ashes were famously fired from a cannon in the direction of Poland. Vasily Shuisky was then proclaimed Tsar, but if he thought this would end the chaos, he was wrong. He was just another boyar, not a true Tsar in the eyes of the people. And if one Dmitri could appear, why not another? Almost immediately, a new pretender emerged. False Dmitri, too. We have no idea who this man was. He was a complete unknown, but he had the name, and that was enough. He set up a rival court in the village of Tushino, just outside Moscow, becoming known as the Tushino Thief. Russia was now split in two, with two Tsars, two governments, and two sets of loyalties. A brutal civil war erupted. The situation became a free-for-all. Polish forces, no longer just backing a pretender, openly invaded, hoping to conquer Russia for themselves. They captured the strategic fortress of Smolensk and even marched on Moscow. In a moment of desperation, Tsar Shuisky made a deal with another enemy, Sweden. He offered them Russian territory in exchange for military help against the Poles. This backfired spectacularly. The Poles saw this as an escalation and crushed the Russo-Swedish army. The boyars in Moscow, having had enough of Shuisky, deposed him and forced him to become a monk. Now Russia had no Tsar at all. The Polish army occupied the Kremlin. The Swedish army occupied the north, and various warlords and peasant armies roamed the countryside. The nation of Russia was on the verge of complete collapse, of being carved up and absorbed by its neighbors. This was the absolute lowest point, but it was in this darkest hour that the Russian people finally found their resolve. The head of the Orthodox Church, Patriarch Hermogenes, was imprisoned by the Poles in the Kremlin, but he managed to smuggle out letters calling for a national uprising. He urged the people to forget their differences and unite to save their faith and their homeland. His call sparked a patriotic fire. In the city of Nizhny Novgorod, a butcher named Kuzma Menin stood up in the town square and delivered a passionate speech, urging his fellow citizens to give everything they had to fund a new national army. He was joined by a respected, but not particularly famous, prince named Dmitri Pisarsky, who was asked to lead it. This was not an army of nobles or the Tsar. This was a people's army. Men and women from all walks of life, merchants, craftsmen, peasants rallied to their banner. In 1612, this volunteer army marched on Moscow. After a series of bloody battles, they managed to besiege the Polish garrison trapped inside the Kremlin. Starved into submission, the Poles finally surrendered. Menin and Pisarsky had liberated the capital. The time of troubles was not yet over, but the tide had turned. With Moscow free, the task was to find a new, legitimate Tsar who could unite the fractured country. In 1613, a great national assembly was convened, representing all classes of Russian society. After much debate, they made their choice. It was not a powerful prince or a famous general. It was a 16-year-old boy, Michael Romanov. Why him? He was related by marriage to the old Rurikid dynasty, providing a link to the past. He was young, had no political baggage, and hadn't been involved in the scheming of the boyars. He was a compromise candidate, a symbol of a fresh start. When the delegates found him, he and his mother were hiding in a monastery. Legend says his mother initially pleaded with him to refuse the crown, fearing for his life in such a dangerous time, but he accepted. Michael Romanov was crowned Tsar, beginning a dynasty that would rule Russia for the next 300 years, right up until the Russian Revolution. The time of troubles officially ended in 1613, but its scars ran deep. It took decades for Russia to recover from the devastation. But this period of chaos taught the Russian people a powerful lesson about national unity. The story of the butcher Menin and the Prince Pisarsky became a foundational myth for the modern Russian state, a reminder that when faced with annihilation, the people themselves could rise up and save their nation. It was a brutal, bloody, and bizarre 15 years, but out of its ashes, a new Russia was born. Thanks for watching. It's incredible how a series of political blunders and a bit of bad luck with the weather can nearly destroy a country. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most chaotic moments. See you next time.